Hi there, my name's Brian Wilk. I'm not going to be using the CV word that everybody's all concerned about right now because that may impair your ability to see or share this video. We will be talking about Native American practices that seem to boost the immune system. Now, we're not talking about diagnosis and treatment of specific ailments, so please don't even ask for that. There's already a great deal of misinformation on this pandemic, so no, it cannot be fixed with hot lemonade and turmeric, not even with homemade chicken soup. Now, I'm not a doctor. I do not diagnose or treat medical disorders. I have no services or products to sell you, but I might recommend some reading. So check the links in the description. That'll also tell you where to find medical citations to back up what I'm about to tell you. One of the great secrets of Native American religious and spiritual healing practices, really no secret at all, just something most Americans don't want to do anymore. Fasting. It precedes many ceremonies and is also done as its own practice. In the Southeast, many still follow the new moon fasting tradition. While in English the words are full moon and new moon, in Cherokee they can also be Kalinunda, full moon, and Ushiwa Nunda, empty moon. While the moon is empty or dark, the belly is also kept empty to reflect a balance between the world above and the individual. Some would empty the digestive tract quickly with purgatives and laxatives, cleaning out the bodily vessel to be fit to receive ceremonial medicines when the moon returned in 4 days. Now, at this point, let me remind you that fasting isn't for everyone, especially not for diabetics, hypoglycemics, children, pregnant women, truck drivers, especially those who operate heavy equipment for a living, might also reconsider. Even in religions that do have strict fasting procedures, these people are usually exempt. So please check with a real doctor or a licensed healthcare professional, not your neighbor who sells crystals and essential oils, to see if fasting is even a good idea for you. Now, fasts of 7, 21, 28, even 40 days were undertaken with only water ingested. Also, you do continue your schedule of prescription drugs, if any. No reasonable or ethical person will tell you to throw away your prescription drugs. And here I'm not talking about intermittent fasting, which has become popular for weight loss, where you fast from everything but water for 18 hours to trigger autophagy. Autophagy is a process where the body takes out the trash, consumes its own fat stores after it's used up the available carbs. This is how you get weight loss and the release of human growth hormone. So here's a rough schedule of what happens in the process in your body. On day 1 of the fast, at 24 hours in, stem cells will be secreted inside your intestinal tract. Stem cells are undifferentiated shapeshifters. They can transform into any type of cell in your body, but only once. They can't change back. By day 3, you begin creating musculoskeletal stem cells. Autophagy peaks at the end of day 3 and begins a sharp decline, accompanied by a decline in release of HGH, or human growth hormone. Day 4, the creation and release of new stem cells peaks at the end of day 4, or at about 96 hours. On day 5, secretion of neurochemicals may bring the sensory enhancement and euphoria similar to that experienced in the peyote ceremony or even the ayahuasca ceremony. It will continue to increase as the days go on. Day 7, well, according to Cherokee teaching, after 7 days without food, spirits of the land or the little people will answer your questions, acknowledge your presence. Our big benefits for today are increased immune regulation and increased genetic repair. 4 days may seem extreme for a beginner, so many people build up to it, fasting a little more each month. 12 hours, 18 hours, 1 day, 2 days, so forth. It's tradition to start a fast by loading up on meats, seafood, eggs, and dairy, while avoiding carbs. It's tradition to end it with meat broth or eggs. One teacher I know always had an omelet of eggs, cheese, and potatoes waiting when the students ended a fast. Like anything else, fasting can be carried too far. I've known of medically supervised total fasts extending past 200 days, but that's very rare. The benefit of the new moon fast, 4 days, is you only do it once each month. In the description below, you'll find some citations of medical research on the topic of fasting. See you again next time. Hello, I'm Brian Wilkes. In part 1 of Native American New Moon Fasting, I said that fasting could reboot or reset the immune system. Those are terms I thought would be understandable to an audience watching on computers, but let me give you a more thorough explanation. As I've told you before, I'm not a doctor or a licensed healthcare provider. I don't give medical advice. I don't diagnose or treat illnesses. I do teach about science and indigenous tradition. So let's hit the science first, and then I'll share some personal experiences. And if you're one of those who cannot or should not attempt fasting, such as a minor child, diabetic, hypoglycemic, a pregnant or nursing woman, then please don't. Otherwise, check with your doctor to see if fasting presents any special problem for you. Now, many people are calling what they do fasting. Intermittent fasting, 1 meal a day fasting, ketogenic fasting. When I say fasting, I mean no food, only water, perhaps unsweetened green tea, black coffee, or black tea. Now, when I'm fasting, my splurge is club soda. Continue any prescription meds, of course. When we stop eating, in the first several hours, we begin burning stored sugar in our blood. By the end of day 1, we're burning through that sugar. Day 2, the sugar's gone. We start to get hungry and perhaps a little bit cranky. Now, it's important to know this because you don't want to have a lot of frustration or conflict swirling around during a fast. Go find something peaceful, meditate, sing, do art, do music, or as the wannabes like to say, walk in balance on Mother Earth, aho! Now, by the end of day 3, you'll start to burn fat. Your body burns off its sugars, then it starts burning a little bit of protein, and then that stops because your body jumps into the ketone phase or ketosis phase. Fat transforms into ketones, which are very efficient fuel for the brain found in your body. One mark of the ketotic phase is very foul breath. Imagine a fast food joint that hasn't changed its deep fryer fat for a few months. Now, some say it's more like rotting fruit. All depends on what your diet's been. The lungs, remember, are also an organ of elimination, and they're taking out the trash through your breath, and it will smell that way. So in the ketosis phase, you're starting to burn fat. You're also entering autophagy. Autophagy means self-eating. Your body is beginning to eat the leftover debris, proteins, fats, different intracellular proteins that are not being used. They're just sitting around as waste products. Kind of like emptying out your garage. Well, you begin to dump excess digestive juices, which are no longer needed. So your feces may look orange or even yellow and become increasingly loose. Don't worry, you'll make new digestive juices when you start eating again. Your body decides that all of the old, worn-out, damaged, or surplus white blood cells should also be sacrificed, so your body gobbles those up, then breaks them down. Also on day 3, you have a dip in the immune cell count. If you fast for weeks, actually starve yourself without medical supervision, that could be bad for your immune system. But when we break our fast after 4, 5, 6, even 7 days, our body immediately starts sending signals to our stem cells in our sternum, the femoral heads at the top of the hip, the frontal bone in our skull, the places where bone marrow makes fresh blood cells, where the stem cells still reside. those stem cells are stimulated to go crazy, building brand new fresh white blood cells. So you get a fresh white blood cell count and all of the different cells that we use in our immune system. The body almost explodes with all these fresh, active white blood cells. We call that a reset or a reboost or a reboot. The white blood cells have their own intelligence. They remember the past pathologies you've had, so they still keep you healthy and immune from viruses or bacteria that they've learned to recognize. This is how we reboost our white blood cells and our immune system. So think of it as getting a hardware and systems upgrade. Euphoria starts coming somewhere between late day 3 and day 5. You start feeling kind of sparkly with more mental and emotional clarity. Your eyesight seems to improve. Your hearing seems to improve. Your smell seems to improve. You're not imagining this. Those are your instinctive hunting skills sharpening up to find you some food. One of the things that happens is you get a drop-off in Insulin-Like growth factor 1, or IGF-1. This is a growth factor associated with cancer cell proliferation and migration. There are some benefits from IGF-1, but there are some negatives as well because it assists cancer cells. One of the things that fasting does is attenuate that IGF-1, shuts it down, and that helps slow the progress of cancer, should you have any in your body. When you have very little sugar in your blood, most cancer cells can't survive. They're sugar dependent. They start dying off in droves. But if you do an extended or prolonged fast, which for our purposes means beyond 7 days, cancer cells also have their own intelligence. It's been shown that lymphatic gland cancer cells, called B cells, B as in beta, can switch to using glutamine in the absence of glucose for cell replication and survival. So your cancer cells learn to eat a different food. Now remember, our new moon tradition is to stop eating on the night of the new moon, also called the empty moon, and to remain empty for 4 days. That's 96 hours. Some have such great results that they gradually increase it to 7 days. One of my elders cautioned me against fasting out of economic need. Let's say I'm out of work during this shutdown, so why don't I just fast and not consume my family's limited and valuable food resource? He said the problem with that is that people who are a little too smart for their own good will subconsciously extrapolate to, oh, this could go on forever. I don't know when my next paycheck will come, so this may never end, and then I'll just die. Well, that causes a lot of stress, a lot of depression. Remember, I said you don't want additional stressors during a fast. That's why the tradition is to enjoy good, rich food just before the fast begins and after the fast ends. Think of the Lenten fast, 40 days, preceded by Mardi Gras, followed by Easter dinner. So to summarize, fasting lowers the white blood cell count, which in turn triggers the immune system to start producing new white blood cells. White blood cells are a key component of your body's immune system. Once you start eating again, your stem cells kick back into high gear to replenish the cells that you've recycled. The strategy is to fast for several days to get the benefits. You have to fully deplete your energy reserves in the form of glycogen. That takes your body at least 24 hours, probably 48 hours or more to do this. Doing it 2 to 3 times per year should give you maximum benefit. So doing it once each lunar month, which means 12 to 13 times each year, is going to be more than enough. We'll be coming back to part 3, and I'll go through some of my personal experience with this type of new moon fasting. Bye for now. Hello, I'm Brian Wilkes. We've been looking at the Native American new moon fasting practice as followed by many in the southeastern nations. This is part 3. Parts 1 and 2 deal with the cultural, spiritual, and scientific bases. This third part will be my personal experiences, so if you haven't seen parts 1 and 2 yet, I suggest you do that now. Now, as I always tell you, I'm not a medical doctor or any other kind of licensed healthcare professional, so fasting might not be right for you, especially if you're a diabetic, hypoglycemic, if you're pregnant, lactating, or have any number of other conditions, so please check with your own doctor before attempting a fast, and do not discontinue prescription medications. The practice itself is very simple. At sunset on the day of the new moon, we stop eating. Now, this may be because the Cherokee Day begins at sunset, so that's tradition, but we can use any start point we want. Prior to that start point, I always cut back on carbs and load up on proteins and fats. That helps me with the hunger. But to be honest, in 4 days I experience not hunger, but culinary boredom. What I've learned in 4-day and 5-day fasts is that I'm physically stronger, but mentally weaker than I realized. One of my martial arts instructors had a diagnostic screening method. He would have the student assume a wide horse riding stance and give the instruction to hold the position as long as physically possible. After about 5 or 10 or even 20 minutes, a student would inevitably break the stance and stand up, and be promptly advised of their failure. See, the length of time didn't matter. He would then say, when the body fails, you fall down. When the will fails, you stand up. As embarrassing as it was, we were forced to admit that we had stood up because we were afraid of the pain, afraid of injury, perhaps even afraid of falling on soft ground. It was not a test of how strong our legs were, or even of our endurance, but of the strength of will we possessed. Very often in a fight, the winner isn't the one who can dish out the most punishment, but the one who can take the most punishment and keep going. Pain and the possibility of injury becomes your silent partner in training. I've learned that, like most modern Americans, I eat way more than I actually need physically. I eat to satisfy emotional need. I grew up with a mother who cooked Italian, a father who cooked Southern and Cajun Creole. They even had a restaurant, so I grew up with the attitude that good food equals love. Now, when I stop eating, the message begins to build that nobody loves me anymore, and I don't even love myself. Have I been emotionally abandoned? Boy, if I could just find that Wendy woman, she'd share some love with me because she says she's got something hot and juicy waiting for me. So I also become more aware of the manipulation in food advertising. That's also when I begin to see all the food advertising, really see it, especially around mealtime. Also, I begin to realize how much of my day is devoted to food preparation and consumption. Hey, I can't start a work project now. It's only 30 minutes till mealtime. And then, well, it's mealtime, preparing and eating. And then it's kitchen cleanup time. Then it's, well, don't exert yourself on a full stomach time. So there's an hour to 90 minutes 3 times a day. And that's not even counting food shopping time. Hey, it's still better than our ancestors, but a major time commitment nonetheless. If time is money, you need to put yourself on a diet, both of food and time. So what do I do with that free time? Well, one way I distract myself is by cleaning and organizing the kitchen. This reminds me that food still exists. There's not really a famine underway. It's going to be waiting for me when my fast ends. One of my native elders cautioned me against fasting out of economic need. Let's say I'm out of work during this shutdown like so many other people. Why don't I just fast? Not consume my family's valuable food supply. He explained the problem with that thinking is that people who are a little too smart for their own good will subconsciously extrapolate to, oh, this could go on forever. I don't know when my next paycheck will come, so this may never end, and then I'll just die. Well, that's why the tradition is to enjoy good, rich food just before the fast begins and after the fast ends. Think of the Lenten fast preceded by Mardi Gras and followed by Easter dinner. I also begin to realize I'm not so much hungry as my palate and tummy are bored. I begin to realize how much of my daily sensory gratification comes from the smell, the texture, the flavor of food and drink. And since I also avoid sugars during a fast, I consume usually only filtered water or club soda or unsweetened coffee or tea, my sense of taste begins to change. Did you know that filtered water begins to taste sweet when you don't drink sugar? Well, one physical change is weight loss. In a 4-day fast, I lose anywhere upwards of 12 pounds. The first few pounds, of course, that's the food in my digestive tract. But after the 3rd day, that's all gone, so I'm definitely burning off fat. During a fast, I drink water as often as I think of it to prevent dehydration. So I can't say I've been losing water weight. Nope, I clean out those pipes and then I burn the oil lamps. Usually on day 4, I hit euphoria. In the Native American church, I've participated in both the peyote and ayahuasca ceremonies, and the doors of perception open in a similar way with fasting, but a little more gradually. It's like I've lain my burdens down and literally flushed them away. This euphoria is not an illusion. It's caused by chemical changes in the body, secretions from the liver and from the brain, and this is linked to the sharpening of my senses. I think this is in part instinctive. My hunting skills are being ramped up so I can go out and find some food, since I haven't been doing well with that for a few days. When you fast, you suddenly have a lot more time to reflect on your own deeper motivations. So it's sort of a laxative for emotional blockage. I begin to realize that my relationship with food has its roots in my relationship with my late parents and with their experiences in the Great Depression. Whether or not they realized it, they were fattening me up to endure the next round of depression and famine. Unfortunately, this enables obesity, or as they call it in Europe, the American disease, which aggravates my spinal deformities, my joint deterioration, my heart conditions, and hypertension. Also makes me more susceptible to Crown Victoria. And because of search engines and social media algorithms and now censoring and deleting certain words, when I speak of a Ford Crown Victoria Deluxe, I really mean. So please remember to subscribe to my channel, like and share this video, and ring that notification bell. See you next time.